Okay, today is a the new moon or the Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is the new moon of first fruits. It's a holiday today, and it's come to my attention that maybe some individuals might be thinking that the video that I posted from a girl in Africa giving her testimony about her experience of being molested by multiple men, multiple neighbors in the community, starting at age 4, and how she was talking about how a lot of Africans will cover up child molestation, just like white communities do, just like Black American and other race communities do. And if any individuals feel that me posting that video and me commenting about that extensive and very ancient problem among all 4 races, if you have a problem with me posting that African girl's testimony, I want you to be aware that you have highly, highly educated African women in Africa, some older generation and more traditional, and some slightly younger. They've been on mainstream African news outlets. They've done the research. They're highly educated. They're professional African women. They're darker skin and lighter skin as well. And what these women, the professional women older than that girl who appeared on the mainstream African outlets, they were basically saying the same things as her. And the elder who was speaking on an outlet, she said, sometimes even the imams will be molesting little kids, and that it's not just little girls, it's little boys too. And they were focused on mostly the psychological component, but I don't think it's solely just psychological, because it's always been a big problem for everyone all over the world. And it didn't start with Abrahamic religions. It didn't start with Christianity or colonization like a lot of people think. The Greeks, they were known for that kind of shit and proud of it. Middle Eastern people, they had temple priests who would have sex with whole families as part of worship, including the small children. Like all over the world, the ancient world was not this pristine and highly functional place that a lot of people think it was. It's like, no, in most nations that wasn't the case. And even if you look at Sodom, Gomorrah, and Siwa Oasis, and mind you, Siwa Oasis still stands today. And the story of Siwa Oasis is no different from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where these were not white men. These were not white men at all, and the men of Siwa Oasis. They were polygamous, and they were also very bisexual and very gay. There was no monogamy, no Abrahamic anything in the time of Siwa Oasis. Everyone was just pagan, just like in Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, and what they were doing was they would lock the young men outside the city gates because they didn't have jails back then. They would turn most of the young men gay by locking them out. And their culture of extreme polygamy and homosexuality, it turned women into second-class citizens that were just basically used as a labor force, like for basically just for work and breeding and sex. That's all they used the women for, is just to do most of the work and to breed. And they could buy any number of wives they wanted, for a dirt cheap dowry, mind you. And there was no limit to the number of wives that a man could have, because they would just lock most of the men outside the city gates and just let them the young men sit out there turning gay. And under their laws, a man could only have just one husband, but any number of wives, and they had to pay a very high dowry to have a husband. And, this was their culture of subjugation, their culture of inequality, their culture of forced, excessive polygamy, which bred a lot of homosexuality. And it's still a very, very gay community today, thousands of years later, because word spread. And the people of the city at the Oracle of Siwa Oasis, which again was not Abrahamic based, it was pagan based and still standing today. Siwa Oasis didn't get destroyed like Sodom and Gomorrah. And, that was the culture. And so it's like, it's more openly gay. And with that said, one thing that I don't see happening is that all that stuff that the Bible talks about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge, and how trees are often even a symbol for human beings in symbolic visions, okay? And the Bible says things like the planet itself has its own consciousness, and that it groans in pain and distress, waiting for the sons of the Elohim to be revealed in the last days. The Bible even has a situation where an animal is allowed to speak in plain English to a human being. Now, these things, there's an example of wild, untamed crows bringing food to feed Elijah. There's stories of all of the animals, both domestic and wild, responding to the commands of God in the story of Moses, not just in one small location in witchcraft, but throughout the whole country. You have all of nature rising up to rebel against one black Pharaoh. That's the story of Moses, okay? Where all of nature backed his ministry. And then you have the story of Yeshua, where nature backed Yeshua's ministry, where a fish brought him a gold coin from a shipwreck at the bottom of the sea. He told a storm to stop, and it stopped. He walked on water, which you see mystics of India who walk on water as well. But with the mystics of India, you don't see all of nature backing their spiritual practice and their way of life, even though they communicate with animals too. But most of the time, it's only snakes that support their ministry. Most of the time, you don't have all of nature backing the mystics of India. And it's the same thing in Africa, China, the Americas, wherever. Across the board, Ireland, you got stories of dryads, tree spirits that have souls, animals, various nature spirits that all have souls. You even see it in the Pocahontas cartoon. It's in South America's spiritual practice. A lot of them communicate with the souls of trees because a tree has its own soul and consciousness, and they can communicate with each other. This is not made up. This is not false. Yes, other things can choose to live in them, but they got a consciousness of their own. I've even had experiences where my granddad's pit bull Rambo showed up in my dreams for the first time in my life after I moved hundreds of miles away and I was married. And I was 25 years old. And he was happy. He was free. There was no leash, no collar, no fence. He had a dead squirrel, and there was only joy for Rambo. And then my mom called me a couple weeks later to tell me that my granddad's pit bull Rambo had died of old age. Because he was a very, very old dog. Granddad got him when me and my brothers were little. And so that tells me that when I had that dream of Rambo for the first time in my life, hundreds of miles away, being happy and free, that was his way of being allowed to say goodbye to me and possibly goodbye to other members of our family, as he did the dog version of dying peacefully and happily as an old man. This dog, he had never been to my home or my husband's home. I hadn't even seen him in a couple years because I moved far, far away and I got married. But yet that dog had a soul. That dog was able to appear in my dreams for the first time in my life, to do his dog version of a happy, peaceful goodbye from this life, which was confirmed weeks later by my mom's phone call. And a matter of fact, my grandfather's much younger girlfriend, Rita, she died in a high-speed chase with another female after she broke up with my grandfather, because she was, into illegal activities. And, I had never dreamed about Rita before either. And a similar thing happened after she died. But after her death, it was like a more negative, drug-addicted kind of energy. And, it kind of gave me the impression that her spirit might have possibly returned to my granddad's home through a spiritual gateway, attempting to, infect others with the energy of her desires. But with that said, my main point is that when you pay very, very close attention in life, you can tell that animals do have souls. And even with modern Christians, you'll see modern Christians giving testimony that they've even seen animals like horses, just horses and different kinds of animals dying and going to heaven. And so people, they never stop to think, why is it that our pet cats and dogs and our horses and all these different animals can go to horses, but yet we have all these people, human beings with a higher mind, who's angry and pissed off and think that they can't go to heaven, like a horse, a cat, or a dog? That's kind of interesting. We got all these angry ass people and they think that they have much, much less of chance of going to heaven than the animals. And you gotta wonder, okay, well, why is that? And then you have mystics of India. One of them, Sadhguru, he was saying that heaven is full. He believes heaven is full of a lot of pedophiles. And I cannot speak on that because I have not seen heaven. But at the same time, he says that there is no God. So right there, how are you going to release a video to tell people that heaven is full of pedophiles and perverts, but in the same breath release several more videos saying that there also is no God? Regardless of whether heaven is spiritual, digital, or plant-based, whatever the case may be, intelligent design is apparent among all these creatures that live on this planet. And like I said, there's a difference between people where you can tell that all of nature supports their ministry versus other ones, all of nature does not respond. You'll only see like a swarm of flies or a swarm of roaches or a swarm of snakes. in a very tiny location responding. And so here's what I think. I think what needs to happen is a lot of these people who are promoting all these different African religions, these different Asian, European, Native American, South American religions. I think these, or even people who practice shamanism, I think these people need a publicized challenge that would be easier for everyone to witness. I think, ideally what could happen is that these people could have a challenge where they have to prove that all plants and all animals of all types in their entire nation, not just a tiny, small, tiny location where they feed them and give offerings, they need to give proof that all of the plants and animals in their nation is in support of their spiritual message, their spiritual practice, their culture, and their people's choice in mates. I would bet money that there's probably not one human being alive in today's world of any culture or any religious belief system who can sit there and prove that their mission is approved by all of creation itself and not just their ancestors, not just their God over their little individual little belief. I don't think they can prove that. And I suspect it is possible to do that because, again, these animals and plants, they really do have souls. The planet itself has a consciousness. This stuff is in the Bible and in pagan religions as well. And people, they just don't be paying attention. And if you stop running your fucking mouth, criticizing people, telling shit you don't want to hear, okay, why don't you shut your mouth and then attempt to connect with these trees who the soul of the individual tree itself, the oldest trees, especially trees like the redwoods of California, but the oldest trees in many different locations, talk to them. The plants and animals that are not domesticated and that have not been planted by man, talk to them, communicate with them. And because they communicate with each other about threats. They communicate with each other through out-of-body projection and through their root systems about threats, about things that can harm them. And so why don't you stop talking about what you think? Stop talking about what your ancestors, your God thinks. Talk about what these trees, the oldest ones, have communicated to each other about you. Go to the tree and, like if you're on the African continent, go to the tree and say, hey, what have your brothers and sisters said to you about that desert in North Africa? How did it get there? Ask them, hey, are there really dead trees? Fully dead trees underneath all those sand dunes, just like white people says? How did it get like that? What's the true story? Ask these trees, what do you think about our ancestors? What do you think about our way of life and our choice in mates? Do all of you and all of the plant and animal kingdom support our message and our way of life? Or have you all communicated to each other a distress signal that our people are a threat to you and have done way too much damage for way too long? Ask questions. Like, instead of just saying that the environmental scientists are fairy tales spinning stories for white supremacy, instead of saying that every person who tells you shit you don't want to hear about your choice in mates, your religion and your way of life, instead of just assuming it's all a lie, why don't you stop telling your following what you want to hear, what your ancestors, what your God wants to hear? And why don't you connect with these oldest trees around you? And if you do that, I'm pretty sure that you might lose your following pretty quick, because those creatures, they might tell you some shit that you don't want to hear about your tribe, about your species. Most likely, they've probably been communicating to each other for a long time. The extent to which you all have been a threat to them. Instead of saying, oh, white people are making up a fairy tale that people have made 75% of all life forms on this planet extinct since the Ice Age. Okay, instead of saying white people made it up and it's fake, why don't you talk these plants and animals and trees? Instead of saying that it's fake or from the government or the Illuminati, when a messenger like Sadhguru says stop breeding or nature will kill you, instead of saying that's fake, okay, we'll communicate with some of these trees, the oldest ones, on multiple continents in multiple regions, and ask them, hey, is this true? Is all of nature itself really going to kill us if we don't stop breeding, like Sadhguru says? You know, and it's not just Sadhguru. There were multiple mystics of India and also Christian prophetic pastors who were given a very similar message at the start of the pandemic. Like one Christian pastor even said, it was a woman, not a man, and I forgot her name, and she said, yeah, well, God said that mankind is not going to receive the messenger that they want. She said nature is going to prophesy to you, and the behavior of nature is going to tell you what you need to know about yourself. So you can sit there talking about, oh, I'm pro-Islam, I'm pro-Nigerian-based religion. You can say I'm pro this shamanism, pro-Buddhist, Hindi, whatever the fuck you want to say. But these creatures around you in the plant and animal kingdom that have suffered massive, mass extinction at the hands of you and the Europeans, all going all the way back to the fucking Ice Age, even in South America. This has happened in a lot of places. In South America, there was a 100-year drought. And you can't even tell our young people about the 100-year drought that forced the evolution of a lot of indigenous American men to become more hormonally calm. There's a lot of indigenous American men, they don't grow a beard. And if they do, they got very little facial hair. There are both Black and the more Asiatic-based indigenous American men. There's men like my grandfather, they don't go bald in old age because that 100-year drought caused by destroying too much of the plant life, that forced a lot of men to evolve through the process of death, just like what you see in the animal kingdom. And so with that said, all these people in these different belief systems, both Christian, pagan, shamanistic, non-religious, whatever, if you're not able to connect with the oldest trees in multiple locations, to ask them if it's true that nature will destroy your ass and force you to evolve if you don't stop breeding. If you're not able to connect with them to ask them if it's true that the whole planet itself will turn on you if you don't stop it, okay, well, find a child, a pure-hearted child with psychic abilities, and have the child to go find out if it's true that the whole planet itself and all of nature will turn on you and kill your ass if you don't stop breeding, if you don't change. Because there's a lot of people, they have this attitude like, oh, we can change and fix everything except us to make it better. They can say, oh, well, the forest is gone. Okay, we can replant a forest. But it's not the same, because a lot of the types of plants and animals that used to live there, they're dead now. It's not quite the same. There's this attitude of, oh, we can fix anything, but you have some situations where they've replanted forests and the forest still burned down to the ground, or they lost huge patches to disease because it's not enough diversity. There's a situation going on right now where people, they have their opinion about what they want to choose for their genetic future. They have their opinion about the types of mates that they want. But okay, you might be in favor of you having a certain number of children. You might be in favor of having a mate who needs two wives or two polygamous partners, or even 10 wives and 111 kids. Okay, you might be thinking that. But does nature agree with it? All of creation has been communicating about you and your ancestors for a long time. And what you need to find out is, also, not only do you need to find out if it's true that all of creation will kill your ass if you don't stop breeding, you also need to find out, okay, well, I think all men is supposed to have 2 or 10 or 100 women. Does nature agree with me? Is all of creation gonna make war on my bloodline and snuff us out if we continue forcibly pushing our evolution in that direction, just like the gay bisexual men of Siwa Oasis, which still stands today, and Sodom and Gomorrah? You need to ask these questions, or have a pure-hearted child to go ask these questions from trees not planted by man. You ask them for you. And there's this one plant that lives in the desert, and I think the plant has a lifestyle of 1,000 or more years. I forgot the name of it. They probably have information about things they've seen over time too. But because everything is so dry, they're probably more cut off and not able to communicate that like other plant types can. We need to hear more of what your victims in nature have to say about what's going to be done to you and what's right and what's wrong. And less about you promoting your way and saying, oh, nobody's going to tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me how to live. Okay, well, this planet was not created just for you and only you. It's a whole lot of other different types of creatures that are gone forever and never coming back because of shit that you've done since the Ice Age. So instead of blaming everything on God or blaming everything on the aliens, or instead of saying that certain types of problems are fairy tales that don't exist, find a way to get the true scoop from these creatures that don't talk to you, maybe because you don't have a pure heart. Ask them about those subjects, if they'll communicate with you. And I guarantee you that if you focus your following on what they have to say and not on what you want, not on what your ancestors want, not on what your gods or your aliens want, if you focus the conversation on that, you might lose the overwhelming majority of your following, because I'll bet money that if you do it successfully, You're probably not going to post the results online. You're probably not going to tell your following. You're probably going to keep lying to them, saying, oh, our way represents what's natural. Okay, well, if it's your goal to be natural, then that means it's your goal to have your evolution forcibly changed and redirected by the creatures of the natural world. You know, you people, they trying to do a lot of last minute shit all over the planet because shit's about to hit the fan. You need to get the truth, not from the replanted trees in the much less diverse forest because it's from the hands of man. No, them oldest trees who have had communications from their neighbors about your fucking ancestors, your culture, your way of life. Get the truth from them. And maybe you'll be shocked to find that a lot of what these white scientists has been saying about the environment is actually true. Maybe you'll find out that some of these mystics of India and these Christian prophets, maybe you'll find out that what they're saying about the fact that nature itself, all of it and the planet itself, will make war on your ass and kill you if you don't stop breathing. You might find out that's actually correct. And, you know, I understand how a lot of different types of problems are connected, but don't sit up and say that it's stupid and that I need to stop sharing a video about one African girl telling the truth about child molestation of Africans in Africa and how the community protects the predators, raping kids as young as 4 years old. It's not caused by it's not caused by monogamy. It's not caused by marriage. It's not caused by white people. This has been a problem for everybody on the entire planet, going all the way back to ancient times. And these problems, you know, like the legends, full legend of Siwa Oasis, which was pagan, Sodom and Gomorrah, which was pagan, doing a lot of the shit that America does today. You know, with forcibly turning the young men gay, forcibly not giving them access to young women, forcibly guaranteeing excessive polygamy. You know, it was not heterosexual men who did that. The guys who did that and made women just second-class citizens for work and breeding, those dudes were gay and bisexual. They were just regular-ass dudes who ain't had no fucking self-control. You know, and we have confirmation of the story in the Bible because between Siwa Oasis, Sodom and Gomorrah, Siwa Oasis is still very, very gay today. And it didn't start with Islam. It didn't start with Judaism or nothing Abrahamic of any kind. You know, if you think everybody's supposed to be lying, if you think it's impossible to have a prophet or a religion that is more supported by nature than yours, if you think it's a lie and you think that nature will not attempt to kill your ass if you don't stop breathing, go talk to the oldest trees. But you also need to tell them, hey, those of us who absolutely need 2 or 10 or 100 women and we feel like we can't be sexually calm or emotionally happy without that. You know, for those of you who say, hey, we need it. We got to have it. Okay, go to these nature spirits and say, hey,